because you're going to develop your own leadership style. And it's probably not going to be, I'm a laissez-faire leader or I'm a autocratic, you're not going to fit within a box.
Welcome to the Vibrant Leadership Podcast.
Today, it is my absolute delight to bring to you one of the people I have worked alongside and see his leadership in action. It is Chief Jerry Stokes. He is the Chief of Police with the city of Salisbury, and he is an inspiration to me, and I'm delighted he's on the
show
So, Chief Stokes, can I call you Jerry for this little intimate conversation?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, how are you doing? How are things in Salisbury, North Carolina?
Yeah, we're surviving COVID and, trying to be as normal as possible. But yes, I'm probably better than I deserve. So yes.
That's great. That's great. Well, you are one of these frontline folks that is taking care of business despite all of our crazy COVID nonsense that's going on. So I'll just say for everybody who's listening, we're grateful, grateful, grateful. And you are one of the leaders that I work alongside. And I am absolutely delighted to ask you this question because I've seen your leadership in action. But how would you define leadership?
I've thought about this question, and there are all those classical definitions that from those academic, definitions, and that, situational, autocratic, democratic, laissez-faire even's in there. But those are, to me, a little more management than maybe leadership styles. And so I believe leadership is really kind of mindset and principled methods of getting people kind of to do what you need them to do or the right thing. You can use those academic, definitions as a way to manage your leadership, but to be a true leader, you have to be an inspiration to people, an example and an inspiration to people, and to get them to do what they need to do and rise to their abilities and meet their true expectations and what they're capable of doing. If you inspire and grow folks and they become good employees or good citizens, what have you, themselves, that's what makes you a leader.
Yeah, and I have seen you do this first thing. So how do you inspire people? Like, let's just go a little deeper right there. How exactly do you inspire? Because here's what you need to know about Jerry is that, he's not a flashy guy. He's like calm, cool, collected. He's almost stealth. So how does a calm, cool, collected guy like yourself inspire people?
Well, I think being present a lot, and
yes.
In police leadership. So I'm administration. So there is that classic divide of we're out here doing the work. I go to the scenes and the incidents and kind of get my hands a little dirty. So I think that inspires folks as well to the chief's here and, appreciates what we're doing. And I think that too, showing people that you appreciate what they do, even, hey, great job passing in the hallway, but also look for those opportunities to recognize people formally. We have a policy or systems in place to give officers ribbons to put on their uniform, which are very formal ways of, saying they did a great job. And that really inspires seeing, my coworker got recognized for the great work that he or she did. And that's going to, help me say, I'm going to step up too and try to do something to be recognized as well.
I think that's great. You told me one time that very same thing, that you had something really big going on and you went out to the scene, but when you get out there, you don't take over.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think that true inspires people. I'm not, what's the phrase? Not an expert at one thing, but, halfway.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, jack of all trades and master of none. That's it. That's the phrase. So, yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So I know myself that, when I get out there, that there are people that are much smarter than me and doing whatever happens to be going on, be it, this type of crime scene or this type of incident. So they're much better at that. And those simple questions of what do you need and how can I help, rather than this is what you need to do, is sometimes what you need to make sure that as a leader, you're not, overriding good sense and letting people do their job. I mean, they want to do their job. They know they can do it. They know they're skilled at it. And for you to come in and say, oh, let's do it different and not be the expert, then you're not going to inspire folks and you're not going to lead well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I don't think that doing police work is any different than doing, like, say, working for a bank or something else. It seems like everybody's job is getting more and more technical. Like, you got to know this little piece of software, or you got to know this little piece of, doing police work. And so not one human can learn all that. So leaders are really having to rely on their frontline people to understand all the details and to let them kind of lead themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's important. So what are the most important skills that like a chief of police needs to have? I have the privilege of working inside of a little organization called Law Enforcement Management Academy down in Monroe, North Carolina. And, all the people that come to this want to be the chief someday. These are the rising leaders. And so I'm planning on sharing this podcast with them. So, what would you say was the secret to getting yourself into the chief seat?
So I think, I've always been a genuine person, very, matter of fact or frank and honest. And the honesty for our profession is absolutely the most important thing. Never compromising and never losing integrity, and being thoughtful about what you're doing and how this is going to affect people, because we have unfortunately our actions can have significant effect on people's lives. So understanding that power and using it wisely, and particularly for leaders and supervisors, and being out there and making sure that folks are doing the right thing and for the right reason. And when you're out there walking that walk and talking that talk and doing what you say is important, I can talk about ethics and integrity all day long. And if I don't demonstrate that, and even in my personal life, right? So, as a chief, the newspaper would love to run a story about me getting drunk at a bar or whatever. Well,
Yeah, they would.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would damage my leadership significantly if something like that were to happen. So I've got to walk that walk and walk that talk and say, you've got to have integrity. You've got to be honest and like I am, and you're not necessarily saying like I am, but you're demonstrating that. And remember, everybody started from the bottom, and that is absolutely something that you can't forget, is where you came from. And I think that probably, for me, I have always remembered those stumbles that I had when I was brand new and in field training, and a long, long time ago,
Right.
with a veteran officer, and didn't know anything. I was fresh out of the academy, and everybody thought I was, probably wasn't going to last for 2 weeks, like they do just about every new officer around here. And remembering that, and that, it's okay. They're going to make mistakes, and we don't take it personal. We're going to correct, and sometimes people make significant mistakes, but most of the time it's just they didn't know what to do. So particularly when they're young and new, and not forgetting that, when I was young and new, had people treated me in, a disrespectful manner, I may not have hung around, but fortunately, generally fairly respectful to me when I was younger, and wanting to help me and coach me. And that's what's important. I can have all sorts of leadership knowledge and institutional knowledge, but if I'm not sharing that and helping people along the way, then I'm not a successful leader. And another thing is don't take it personal, right? People are going to criticize you. And I've, particularly as a chief and nowadays, people are very critical, but, I can't take that personal. And my folks might be critical of things I do or say, and I can't take that personal. But maybe those are learning opportunities for me too. Maybe, well, had the department done X, Y, or Z, or you as a chief done X, Y, or Z, well, I can dig my heels in and be mad about that. Or I can say, okay, well, probably could have done that better. And then for the next time, look at that. And got to make sure you care for your people, care about and care for your people. I worked for a chief one time who publicly made the statement of they don't like it, they can be successful somewhere else. And they were, and ran out the door. And that you have to act like you care about people and what they think and what they feel. And even if it doesn't have some validity to it, that's where people are, and kind of understanding that. And and then of course you got to help them understand why why things are different than you're seeing it. But really, caring about people, and even when they're testing your patients, that 10% of those folks who are 90% of your problems, and not being mad, and still asking how your kids are, that sort of thing. That's important. This isn't personal to us. And again, meeting your folks where they are. Got to adapt to them. You certainly need to set a vision and a tone for your organization, but you also got to understand where your folks are and meet them there too, to help bring them along to your vision.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about. So you talked about a lot. You talked about, first of all, integrity, which to me is this developing people's character. And we've done a lot of work at the city of Salisbury with the police, talking about, what qualities or what character traits do you have naturally? Do you overuse them? And then on the opposite side of the scale, what are the character traits you're not using at all, that if you just applied those, we did the tilt together. So I love what you're talking about. And it's no mistake. It's no mistake. It's not something we're kind of going to avoid, but we know that the police are under a lot of scrutiny right now. And one of the things that I think you do for your team is, like, despite all the things that are going on, you bring them training, you bring them coaching, you bring them this steady, dare I say it, loving attention, and I think that your team really, really, really respects you for that. So I think that's awesome. So the flip side is where do people get themselves in trouble? Like, if you look at all the young officers and maybe some of the older officers that you work with, what are the little traps they get into, or places they get into that makes them less successful or makes people struggle? What do you think police officers get themselves into?
So I think certainly the integrity issue, which is fortunately a very small portion of people in this profession. We do a really good job of vetting folks to get in, and takes dozens of folks to get one person in, because past behaviors predict future behaviors. So if you we can't give you this awesome power that you're going to have as a police officer without having a good background of being able to make good decisions. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah, and I think that's where those few that kind of that rotten apple in the whole barrel sort of thing. So we also need to make sure that we're holding, not wanting to be held accountable. That's even holding a willingness to hold my coworkers accountable as well. So if we talk to folks that are witness a crime. You see something, you better say something, because we can't solve a crime. Well, this is a profession. And if you see something going on, if you don't say something, it's hard for me as the chief to ensure ethics at 3 o'clock in the morning, because I'm usually asleep at that time. So
Right.
you're out there with your coworkers, and if somebody's doing something wrong, I get the understand or the kind of perspective of, we're out here covering each other's back, but we also can't have folks in this profession that aren't upholding that integrity. So that's where, the new cops kind of lose some, end up outside of the profession, is when they lose that
Got you.
integrity. Yeah. And we know lots of things about lots of people, and have the ability to find out lots of things about lots of people just because of the data systems, and understanding that you are responsible for only using that for the right purpose, and not being able to talk about it with your neighbors and those sorts of things. Unfortunately, those are kind of the areas where we get into trouble, is when we want to check out the pretty girl that went by and see what her name is, and that sort of thing. So that has happened. I've seen that happen. So
And now we know where she lives, where she works.
yeah, and it's completely inappropriate, to do stuff like that. So, but and otherwise, it's a trying profession. It will it'll draw you in and make you a very negative person if you let it, and that's probably for more than the integrity issues, is living with
I agree. That cynical thing turns on or something.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And being able to combat that. I mean, I've frankly, I've struggled with that my life, is that being cynical, and these people aren't worth anything, because next week they're going to be doing the same thing. Well, that's not kind of how you need to approach this. And if you let that overtake your thinking, you're not going to be successful at this, and you're not going to do what you're supposed to do.
That's right. So it's that balance between caring about humanity, but being bold enough to take action and make sure everybody is safe. You have to have the courage to go out and be a police officer, but at the same time, the people that are out there, you got to care for the humanity that's involved, right? It's that balance. We're back to that tilt model again. So that's really, really great. Well, I want to ask you a question. I'm going to surprise you with a question. So get ready.
Okay.
But one thing I know about you is like you're personally disciplined. Like Jerry, the non-chief, is a disciplined guy. That's what I witness. And one of the things in my coaching methodology is we look at habits. So my coaching methodology is SHINE, SHINE, and the H is habits. So, talk a little bit about how does a police officer, how does a leader, how does a chief keep himself healthy? What habits do you have in place that keep you so that you can be this man of integrity?
Well, there's the physical health side, and making sure you're exercising and eating right. We notoriously in police work eat horribly. I started off with a 29-inch waist when I came into the profession. I haven't seen that for a very long time. But, and of course, that physical health translates into some mental health as well. The other part to that is you really, really got to have outlets that you enjoy that are not necessarily police related. So not that there's anything wrong with like target practice shooting, but that's kind of police thing, right? You're carrying a gun all the time. If you enjoy that, but find something else, and look for something way outside. And art is way outside the box, but maybe there's something you can do kind of that is completely flip side of this rough, tough exterior police officer thing to escape from all that. And then make sure that you have outlets and friends who are not in the profession. You kind of got to get away from it on occasion. And I've told this to recruits in the past, they were coming out of the academy. we are very, very much, keep our friends close who are usually cops. And my wife's not a police officer, and making sure that we have friends who are well outside of the profession, and even if it's going to be a church or what have you, that you're really engaged in that, and something to kind of keep you focused on the good side of humanity, because we see lots of negatives. I mean, we do see lots of good as well, but it's a lot of negative you get to see. So getting a break from that, and to see something completely different.
Right. And we were talking before we started the podcast about the fact that you're a runner, and you've got he's so humble, but you all need to know, like, back there on his wall there in his office somewhere, there's this big thing of, like, different medals from different runs he's been in and that kind of thing. Well, what is the hobby that you do that is left field? Would you share? Dare I ask?
Right. So I do a little painting of sort. So yeah.
Really? I did not know this. I learn something new every time I talk to you. What kind of painting?
So it's with airbrush and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Oh, that is so cool. All right. Awesome. Awesome. That's fantastic. Okay. So let's say you were mentoring a very special listener. There was somebody on here who was thinking about becoming a police officer or getting into public service. What piece of advice would you give to them?
Never, ever stop learning.
Mm.
Right. Even as a 6 month out of the academy patrol officer, training opportunities will come up, listening to a podcast, whatever. It doesn't matter, but keep learning, and keep your skills sharp, and to kind of get that master of none, but familiarity with a lot of different stuff. Developing your where you're going to go as well. So if you go to these different trainings and you listen to what people have to say, and I went to an auto theft school one time, and that was interesting. And then I went to a homicide detective school, and then that was pretty interesting. So I ended up being on a homicide squad for part of my career, which was based on what I was exposed to. I used the auto theft school several times during my career, when I came across stuff. But again, just never ever kind of getting stale, and not wanting to go to training, and not looking for something different than you have been to before. And leadership positions, those first line supervisors and on up into middle management, you constantly got to be looking for those different types of leadership courses. All of them, have their own little twist to it. And
Right.
You can take a little bit out of each one of them, right? Because you're going to develop your own leadership style. And it's probably not going to be, I'm a laissez-faire leader, or I'm a autocratic, you're not going to fit within a box. You're going to have your own way of leading. You're going to have your own way of having, those different little things that you do to be a successful leader. Hopefully not too many things that you do that make you unsuccessful, but
Right.
And of course, if you go to different courses, you're going to help you understand where those gaps are that you're not doing real well at, and kind of improving yourself. So it's a constant improvement, and you've got to do that in this profession, probably every profession. I don't know. I've never really worked anywhere else, but every profession, as far as, constantly improving. And for supervisory skills, that's super important. For always, those intelligence, emotional intelligence kind of assessments, the path elements, and all those sorts of different little things. And I've done tons of them over my career, but each one of them told me a little bit about some little part of my personality that helped me understand and probably be a better leader. Because again, you're not going to fit in a box.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. I mean, it's not like a one and done on these assessments. And like you said earlier, when you want to become a police officer, there's this battery of assessments that they take. And I've had the privilege of seeing some of this. And so, when you think about, seeing your fellow police officer out on the streets, this person's been seriously vetted and it's a solid guy or gal. That is absolutely for real. But I heard you say a couple things. You need to have a growth mindset if you're going to be a leader, right? So it's just like, I've got something to learn, which is so funny because I think a lot of times, you get into a position, and I love what you said earlier, said, we're going to give you this job with all this power. Wow, that is a really cool way to look at it. You could get a little ego trip cooking, right? And understanding that, no, you've always got something to learn, and then doing these assessments and like holding it up like a mirror. Okay, is this true about me? Maybe not be 100%, but that little thing right there, that is absolutely true about me, and I should pay attention. So turning the mirror inward is what I like to call. So that's self-assessment. That's the S in my coaching methodology, which is to look in the mirror and go, what's it like to experience me? What is my deal? So I think that's really, really important. Very, very valuable what you shared. So one other thing I want to say, because you won't toot your own horn, I know that. I know that when you came to the city of Salisbury, and now that you have been there, you've had a real impact, like on the numbers. So it's not just, inspire your people, but it's like, you got to do business too. And one of the great things about you is I know you get business done, meaning lowering the right numbers and, making the other numbers go up. So another question kind of off the board here, but how did you do that? How did you come in and figure out how to take the numbers the right direction? Because you absolutely did that.
We talked about that growth mindset, and I was fortunate to come from a department that sent me to lots of growth training. And one of them I went to at Boston University, and it was for 3 weeks. We sat up there and talked about focused deterrence and crime reduction strategies. But unfortunately, my department was kind of played at it, but they didn't do it really well. So, but I knew these concepts, right? So, and they work, right? Everybody says they work academically, they
right, researched and all that.
Yes. So when I got the chance to come here, it's kind of like, okay, well, here's your clean slate, and you got to make these sort of things happen. So here's our problems, and you talked about all these things, do it. So then I had to know that, okay, I know these concepts, and I've tried to walk it, but I'm not, an expert at this. So actually, I went out and got somebody that was an expert, right? And I probably could have meddled through with this and made it okay, but I happened to find somebody who really knew it well and had done it. So that's another thing for a leader is that, and again, understanding that I don't know everything, and I know academically I know these things, and if I don't know how to do them, I need to make sure that I go out and find somebody that can help me get there. So nobody around here in-house knew that, but brought somebody in from the outside to help me. And I think that understanding this is a vision I have, and I'm kind of assessed what I needed to do and where we were, and then okay, this is what I got to do to make us successful to get there. And again, so it was bring in somebody who was very capable of doing that and knew the concepts academically, but also had done them operationally. So, put them in a significant leadership role and kind of support them and, yep, let's run with this and let's do this, and, helping them do the things that I could do, like the budget and what have you. Those are all my responsibilities. But okay, we need money here. All right, let me figure out how I can help you push money over there in the budget and do things differently than we're doing it, and being willing to be creative about that. And so we brought in all these concepts, and now we're really headed in a good direction. we were at a 20-year low, and we know it's 20-year because we only go back, at least
Have that much data.
Yeah, I only have that much data, so it could be lower than that. As a matter of fact, somebody gave me a 1980s news article about the city, and it's way more than 20 years crime reduction. And these things work, and we were able to get it down in a relatively short amount of time. And I think that was because the people that were here knew they needed to do something different, right? They knew what they were doing. They didn't have a good direction. They knew what they were doing wasn't necessarily solving the problems. I mean, they were reacting to the problems. So everybody kind of embraced it and jumped on board. And I think that's what helped us bring those numbers down in a relatively quick amount of time.
Yeah. And so the concept that I would call what you did is I have a leader I work with over in Kentucky, and I think I've shared some stories maybe with you about her, but she runs all these convenience stores. And so her business is a lot like your business. It's open 24/7, 365. It never goes to bed. And she said, what you got to do is put an ace in the right place. And so that's kind of what I heard you say. So, and the thing is, again, I think, leaders need to understand is surrounding yourself with really great people and giving them the tools, because you kind of alluded to the definition. We started at our blog or our podcast with the definition of leadership, and yours was to inspire people and to take care of them and care about them, and now at the end you went back to kind of an academic place, which is the Center for Creative Leadership over in Greensboro, North Carolina, says you got to give people direction. You got to get them aligned, meaning resourced, which I heard you say when you talked about budget. And then you just got to get a commitment out of people. And it sounds like you did that. You set a direction, got alignment, all the stuff in the right place, the budget, the person, the people were ready to commit. And once you get those three things together, it's like, it works.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, so I celebrate that. Okay. So tell me what you're going to do with your career and with your leadership in the future. Tell me what the future holds for you.
So I've been doing this a really long time, and it's probably time to not tomorrow, probably in the next couple of years, I'll look at a full retirement. So I've retired once from Virginia, and so
yeah.
I'll probably end out my career here in Salisbury.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I bet you'll have something up your sleeve if I know you, something you'll dip your toe into, provide some great inspiration and care for people.
I don't know. If it involves a beach or something, I might be okay.
Is that where you want to go? You want to go to the beach?
Yeah, I think we'd like to go there.
That sounds fantastic. Well, I am so grateful that you have been on my podcast, the Vibrant Leadership Podcast, and we have learned a lot from you today. And so check out the show notes where I'm going to mention some of the key things that Jerry shared with us, and also maybe a few tools for your toolbox, because he was talking about putting tools in your toolbox when he was talking about education and learning. So I'm going to put some tools as a download for you at the end of this podcast. So Jerry, thank you so much for being with us. We totally, again, we're very grateful for your public service for all these many, many years. And thank you for being such a great leader.
Well, thank you for inviting me to speak.
Absolutely. It was fantastic. I think you should write a book. Maybe
I don't know if I can remember everything.
I bet you could. Maybe you just need we'll find you a writing coach. That's what
there we go. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
To learn more, visit vibrantcoaching.com.